What black market existed in your school? The cafeteria, not school run, just kind of a cafe inside of the school, would charge $3 to $4 for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So one girl kept the ingredients in her locker and charged $1. When the school caught wind and shut it down, they tried to guilt us all by saying how the cafeteria was someone's livelihood and we were taking away from that. But come on, $4 for a PB&J? This, in my mind, is just a microcosm of bigger industries blaming the consumer for things. Like one example I just want to say is large restaurant owners or whatever. They blame the consumers for not tipping enough to pay their own staff, when really a lot of the bigger chains and stuff like that can just pay their staff what they deserve. Fast food places do it without tips, so I don't know why these restaurants can't. Now that I think about this more, this seems a little more tangential than I thought. But what I'm saying is it's not the consumer's fault that they can provide the product at a cheaper price. That sounds like your fault. Story 2. Originally, we only had vending machines in the field house, so people would give jocks money to go get them snacks and sodas. Eventually, it became sort of like a service with a fee, of course. Some kids mimicked it with junk food from the convenience stores and it became a black market of the rarest candies. Some people were peddling stuff from Japan, others from the UK. It was a high-stakes candy market of the best stuff. Ginger-flavored Kit Kats, Pear Drops Maltesers, black currant chews, and more. Eventually, the faculty began to notice strange ongoings and alerted the police, which found the whole thing rather amusing. A few weeks later, we had vending machines throughout the school, but for that one semester, it was a lawless land. Story 3. In high school, a kid on the wrestling team had parents who constantly went out of town on business. So he drained their swimming pool and would host fight nights with the fights in the pool. It was called Beat That Butt. He facilitated betting and made himself more money than a high school kid should have. He tried to recruit anyone in the school who looked like they could hold their own in a fight. Eventually, bands started playing at them, and he started burning CDs of each event's music. They were printed and numbered so each one looked like the "Now That's What I Call Music" CDs. But instead of now, they said BTB. Source: was in a band that was asked to play. We declined. Story 4. I used to sell bootleg movies in high school. Not the kind of bootleg where you take a video camera into a theater, but I knew someone who kept getting early versions of movies that I guess are sent to theaters. They had some message about it being for screening purposes only / internal use, I don't remember exactly, and they were giving them to me. I would burn a bunch of copies and sell them to people for $5. They were high quality and still early in theaters. Now this could actually get you in a lot of trouble, genuinely. Entertainment companies, especially in Hollywood, do not screw around. Watch your back, OP, they may come for you, even 20 years later. Story 5. Our high school had an internet filter. An enterprising friend of mine set up a free BSD server in his basement, and put together some 256 megabyte flash drives with an executable version of Firefox. Could run directly from the flash drive without installs, and an SSH client. You could plug it in, connect SSH, then use the server as a proxy for all the Firefox traffic and get around any website you wanted. Let me tell you, those flash drives were a hot commodity. You could set up in the library and just start casually browsing a banned website, and people would start coming up and asking how you did it. I always wonder what kind of banned websites certain schools have, because they're the obvious answers, right? Like adult content, mostly. Maybe some adult content adjacent stuff like 4chan, maybe even Reddit, but there are always some really oddball websites on there. I'm just lucky my elementary school never blocked Pop Tropica. They banned a lot of other sites, but that one had to stay. The other kids in the after-school care with me would have lost their minds, including me, by the way. Story 6. In 8th grade, 2001, I got a Playboy from my older sister's boyfriend. I cut out the nudes and sold them one at a time to the rest of the guys I knew. A $5 magazine turned into close to $50. I didn't get caught, but a few days later, another kid tried the same thing with one he stole from his dad's stash. He was caught. School tells his dad is unusually upset about it. Turns out it was his dad's favorite issue because it was Cindy Crawford in the centerfold. Story 7. JanSport book bag strings. I was in school when JanSport backpacks became popular, at least in NYC. And one of the things everyone loved were these strings on the zippers. It became a huge problem where students were stealing strings off each other's and hoarding them or selling them. The solution became using a lighter to partially melt your strings together so they couldn't be untied without breaking them. Leaving your book bag unattended anywhere was the equivalent of leaving your car parked in the wrong neighborhood in 70s, 80s NYC. Story 8. Bubblegum and chewing gum. It was in middle school. Huge supply for chewing gum. Down the road, there was a little cafe that sold those 5 packs of gum for 10 cents. I walked in with a $5 bill and bought as many as I wanted. I sold each stick at 25 cents each and 50 cents for Big Red. I made a huge profit. People started getting jealous and I got into a few fights over the amount of gum I was selling. Finally, the school caught on and told the store to not sell gum to students anymore. And thus my days as a gum dealer ended. Story 10. Not really black market, but I hope that counts. When I was in middle school, Beyblade was hyped. I was into it too, and found out that there were way newer ones in Japan but not here. Looked further and found fakes that looked almost like the real ones but way cheaper. You all know where this is going. Bought some for me to create interest in them. Showed them the fake boxes all in Japanese so they thought it's real and bought a bunch of them. I made something between 400 and 500 euro in half a year. Story 11. Iodized salt and simple black pepper in the lunchroom. I'm not kidding. This was around 2004, USA. Our cafeteria coordinator was trying to do everything healthy and by government rules, so no added salt. Bogus, but whatever. She also took the pepper too. Kids in my school didn't really pack lunches, as most of us got reduced lunch. I was upset, as they just boiled canned veggies and gave them to you in a bowl with the juice. I wasn't going to stand for that. I was also a huge jerk in high school, so I made a plan. I bought salt and pepper shakers and put them in a zippy bag to carry in my backpack. I broke them out at lunch every day and shared them with about 70 kids. We made it through for about 3 months and then they finally caught on to who had them. I got silent lunch detention in a separate room for a week, and I made sure to put out my salt and pepper on the table every day. But then, when I came back to the normal lunchroom, like 30 people had salt and pepper shakers everywhere, and the coordinator was mad. Oh, it makes me laugh even today. She still refused to put out salt and pepper, but we all had it anyway. It continued until I graduated from there. Story 12. Mine had a couple I knew of, all by a good friend of mine. He made copies of school dance tickets and sold them at half the price. School found out when the entire gym was packed for the semi-formal, even though they only sold like 100 tickets, and he got suspended. Next month, he rented out a community center for a night and ran his own unofficial school dance. School admin tried to bust him for this as well, but all they could say was to not sell tickets on school property. He went down to the States shopping with his parents often, Canadian, we live close to the border, and bought cases of the pop that you don't see around our parts, like all the obscure Mountain Dew or Coke flavors. And he also had boxes of full-sized chocolate bars. Sold them out of his locker, which was just outside the cafeteria for $1, while the vending machine and caf charged $1.50 or $2 for each. Made it about a month before they had security stand within view of his locker to give him crap whenever they saw him selling something. On top of that, he also sold pot for his junior and senior year. Guy made bank in high school. Another one is the fight club that went on for a couple months where there was a large amount of gambling going on. I think that one just kind of tapered off after people got bored. They were smart enough to do that one off of school grounds. Country school with a public park right nearby. Story 13. Oh man, I was our high school black market. My sophomore year, I believe, the school took all unhealthy snacks and drinks out of the vending machines, candy, soda. So I stepped up and filled up the gap until I graduated. I started carrying around a backpack full to the brim with various full-size candy bars and sodas, all of which I would sell for $1. The sodas were the real moneymaker. I could get a 12-pack for $3 and make 300% profit. On a good day, I would generally make around $10, and usually at the very least, 3 to 4. The school did give me warnings a few times when they did locker checks and found several boxes of soda and candy bars, but I just claimed they were all for me and nothing came of it. As a senior gift for my ski team, the underclassmen gave me a creepy trench coat from which to peddle my wares. It was great. The year after I left, another kid on the ski team stepped up and started offering the same service, I've been told. Makes me happy to have left something of a legacy. Story 14. Beta Fish Fight Club. We had open campus lunch, so kids would go to the local PetSmart, buy 2 beta fish, sell them to whoever wanted to fight that day, and they would dump the 2 fish in the toilet to fight. Beta fish are notoriously known for having to be kept alone because they'll rip the other fish to frickin' shreds. And the winner would get flushed down the toilet. So glad I never experienced that stuff. Public school can be weird. Now this is just animal cruelty, and I can't decide between regular fight club and this which is better to have in a school, because we've heard lots about the normal fight clubs in schools. Of course I'm leaning towards beta fish fight club being better, but at the same time, that's kind of screwed up. If you're gonna fight, at least fight another person? No, that sounds weird, they're kids. I don't know. Story 15. Somewhat related, but when I was in college, I ran a free illegal bar for my friends out of my dorm room using alcohol that I stole. I had a whole system worked out for stealing the booze from this big grocery store chain, and the entire time, none of the employees suspected a thing. I made friends with a bunch of them, and they would always say hi to me and chat whenever I would go, which was about 2 to 3 times a week. I actually did get caught for the stealing, but not at that store. only when I tried to do it at Target back home in Chicago. I got arrested for that and felt really stupid for what I was doing, so I gave up shoplifting. However, I never got in trouble for my bar, and I had a lot of fun mixing drinks for my friends. Also made my room the spot to hang out before going to hit parties later on. Story 16. Sold Playboy mags to classmates for alcohol when I was 12 to 13 years of age. It was quite an easy economy. Sunday mornings at 7:30 a.m. I would go to the newsagents when no one would be there, and I would pick up a bunch of the adult mags from the understanding newsagent, who realized I was selling them to classmates. Monday morning, distribute them to classmates who bartered with alcohol. So I was going into school with 3 to 4 magazines, and 3 to 4 classmates were coming into class Monday mornings with bottles of beer or alcohol in their school bags to trade. Just thinking back, I wish I had just sold the alcohol. Good time though. Some funny stories from classes where I knew someone had alcohol in their bags before the trade went down, and could have a bit of fun in class with the teacher. Man, I must have gone to nicer schools than I remember. I don't recall anyone trading alcohol or adult magazines in my school. At least in middle or elementary school. High school, anything goes. Story 17. Not a black market, but a crustacean underground railroad. First, a little background. The sophomore biology class at my high school would dissect crawfish as a part of the curriculum. The crawfish were kept in buckets of formaldehyde at the back of the classroom on the ground. Anyone could reach into these buckets and pull a crawfish out while the teachers, it was a weird combined class with 2 teachers because reasons, backs were turned, and no one would be the wiser. I had some friends who had acquired the locker combination to a girl in our group that they liked to pull pranks on, one of which was making a mess in her locker, with the cherry on top being a stolen crawfish claw placed in the locker among other things. Well, my friend D thought it was hilarious how easy obtaining the claw was, that he wanted to see if he could take a whole crawfish without being noticed, which led to how many can be liberated before it's noticed. As the weeks went by, D heroically put himself in harm's way to liberate as many scared, dead crawfish to freedom as he could. Each time, D would bring an empty soda bottle to class, and when the time was right, he would fill it with formaldehyde to recreate what they're used to. The little guys need to be comfortable after all, and place a crustacean in the bottle. At the end of class, he would smuggle them out with no regard for his own safety. By the end of the school year, D had liberated close to 10 crawfish, and rehoused them successfully into an empty locker where some say they reside happily to this day. Story 18. There was a kid at our school who would show up every day for a few months with this large tote bag full of like 40 Monster energy drinks. He would sell them for $1 a pop. Eventually, we learned that he would literally shove a shelf of Monsters into his bag and run out of a small supermarket near where he lived. So we were all unwittingly buying stolen goods. Other than that, the juniors and seniors in high school were allowed to leave campus for lunch in their cars. So there was a black market on whatever they brought back. Also, one of the seniors had this incredible fake ID that he bought from China that actually scanned correctly. So he used to fill his trunk with liquor, and when the lot was free, he would open up his trunk and just sell the bottles to whoever could pay. When I was in elementary and middle school, I used to forge parents' signatures for kids for cash. I was pretty good at it. Story 19. My friend sold spring rolls. His family was Vietnamese, and they were awesome. He started in grade 9, but by grade 10 had to start taking actual orders during the week and sell any leftovers Thursday. He did this weekly and was killing it. Much like other comments, selling food at my high school wasn't permitted as we had a cafeteria. My friend was called down to the office by the principal during his math class. We thought it was because he was in trouble, but the principal actually just placed a big order for an event or something. He got away with it. After we graduated, he became a chef, and I got a job dishwashing at the same restaurant. I asked how much he made. He wouldn't tell me how much he profited himself, but he donated $4,000 to charity. This has to be one of the more wholesome ones, in a thread with fight clubs and alcohol smuggling. I like this one a lot. And also, I like Vietnamese spring rolls a lot. If you've never tried one, I recommend them. Story 20. For the last year, there's been a pastry and snacks market because of the new law that prohibits school cafeterias where many people used to buy their snacks. Now, a group of to-be seniors have created a monopoly on the market, but they'll be gone next year, so the market will open up for others. And because you can't hide boxes of pastry, they've been banished from the school grounds by staff. But because we can move anywhere during the big 15-minute break, they usually sell in the parking lot in front of the school. So now the staff wants to forbid people from leaving the school building. I don't know what OP is saying at the beginning. Is there a law that prohibits schools from having cafeterias or just selling snacks? The second one sounds more likely. But if you live somewhere where cafeterias have been prohibited for some reason, let me know and why. Story 21. In college, students that were from other cities would get refunds from the administration for bus tickets to go home every weekend. I made a deal with a bus driver to sell real tickets to me at a fraction of their worth. Then I would sell them to students at 50%, and they got 50% from the administration. Full tickets for one trip were $10 to $30. For 1 month, it worked out to be 8 times. This escalated quickly, over 30 clients, and I got up to meeting the bus driver with a huge roll of cash and getting big stacks of tickets. Felt like The Wire or something. The operation worked for about 4 months. After that, the administration funds went down and refunds went down. Was a good run though. Story 22. I used to wear an extra large military style jacket in 6th grade. I was the kid that opened up his trench coat to expose his wares. In my case, I would open up Sharpie pens and put cigarettes in them, and sell the cigarettes to the 8th graders. I was notorious. I'd sell the tall Monster energy drinks out of my locker and put the money in one of the other lockers I had. I had 3 lockers at the time. I would also come to school with a lunchbox filled with packs of gum and sell those. Kids still remember me for this to this day, almost 15 years later. Good times. Story 23. I sold my ADD meds. I'd been on them for years but hoarded them because I didn't like taking them. So I had pretty much everyone under the sun, since they switched them every 6 months. And I would sell them, especially during midterms and all the big testing times in high school. We had Derek, who sold fake IDs and pot as well as psychedelics. He got strung out on drugs like a good number of us later on. One of the top football players, Troy, had an older cousin who sold coke, and he would go pick it up on his lunch break and fulfill his orders the second half of the day. One kid in my Spanish class, I forget his name, but he found out one of the teacher's logins, and would go into the system and change your grades in her class for a price. My buddy had a chronic pain condition, back when they still prescribed oxys like candy. If she got 90 and 2 weeks later said she was out, they would give her more. So she always had the 10 milligram oxys for sale. That's all I can think of off the top of my head, but we had a good time. Now, I'm trying not to be too judgmental here. OP says they had a good time, but none of this sounds good to me. But hey, maybe I'm just a prude or something. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Stay in school, don't smuggle drugs if you can help it, and I will see you in the next one.